Hi, I'm Celina with the Foundation for Inner Peace, and welcome to Conversations on Course, a space for listening, reflection, and real conversation around A Course in Miracles. Today, I'm joined by Jeff Bailey, whose work brings together yoga, healing, and A Course in Miracles in a way that feels both deeply grounded and heartfelt. In this dialogue, we explore Jeff's journey with yoga and the Course, how those two paths began to meet, and how healing, forgiveness, and joining have come to live in a real and practical way through his life and work. Even if yoga is not your path, there is so much here for every course student to recognize and receive. We also touch on deeper questions many students hold, including how to understand the body, healing, and practice while remaining true to the course's non-dual foundation. More than anything, this conversation offers a felt sense that the course is not only something to study, but something to live and experience from the heart. So thank you for being here. Let's begin. Jeff Bailey, hello and
Hey,
welcome.
hey, Celina. Thank you very much. What a joy to be here with you.
Oh, really? It's such a pleasure to have you here with us at the Foundation for Inner Peace and to welcome you into Conversations on Course. I know it's our first time speaking together in this format, and I've really been looking forward to our time together. Over the past few weeks, I've enjoyed spending a little time with your work. And so it feels really meaningful to now have the opportunity to sit with you here and explore A Course in Miracles together. So, before we begin our dialogue, let us do what we traditionally do here at the Foundation for Inner Peace. And we're going to open with a prayer. So, I have a short passage here from chapter 2 that I often read. And, please feel free to join in whatever way feels most natural to you, okay?
Thank you.
Yes. I am here only to be truly helpful. I am here to represent Him who sent me. I do not have to worry about what to say or what to do, because He who sent me will direct me. I am content to be wherever He wishes, knowing He goes there with me. I will be healed as I let Him teach me to heal.
That's beautiful. We can't hear that prayer enough, can we?
I know, absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I know it's helped me many times over the years, for
hmm
sure. So, Jeff, I know that your path has brought together yoga, healing, and A Course in Miracles in a way that very feels very lived and deeply sincere. And in your work, there's a clear sense of integration among practice, presence, and really healing. Healing of the body, but healing of the mind too. I know you speak to it. So this has felt especially meaningful to me as someone who's practiced yoga for about 25 years, and I discovered it, or around the same time I first discovered the course. So, you know, to jump in, so for those meeting you here for the first time, can you share a little bit about your background, including what first drew you to yoga and how did A Course in Miracles begin to find its place within that journey?
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah, it takes me deep, that question, and it, I know that I'm not unique in this, but as I look back on my childhood, I can remember this inkling as far back as I can remember. This little question of, what is this all about? What is the meaning of this? And I'm sure that every child asks that question, and sometimes we grow out of asking that question. But that little teeny tiny question in my heart as a kid, I'm sure is what was the spark for what brought forth yoga and A Course in Miracles. I grew up in a small town in the mountains in Colorado. My dad was a veterinarian, and I spent a lot of time with my dad. And that's really where the roots began. I questioned everything, and I working with my dad, I had my hands and everything, and I think part of the answer came early on with learning how to care for animals, our little four-legged furry friends, the pets we had and have, and cows and horses, and there's something about that sort of stewardship and really caring for those whether they walk on 2 legs or 4 legs, in our life and connecting with them. And, uh, and in that sense, I think pets and animals are teachers of love. In a sense, what more do we need? They teach us so much about love, and I think that's where we start to feel uh, some deep work when we tend to outlive them, and then we get another teacher, and they just.
Yeah.
So anyway, I remember dealing with that as a kid, and uh, and I think that's where the yoga and the love and the light really began. Although it had no direction whatsoever, it was just in my heart. And then in my 20s, I walked into a yoga class. I still to this day can't remember how I ended up in this class. I don't think I was invited by anyone. I probably saw an ad for it or something. And this was in the early 80s when yoga wasn't really that well known. But I was drawn to the class. And looking back on it, well, of course, I was following the guidance. And we can all look back on our lives and see those moments where, wow, yeah, I trusted and followed. And it really worked out, And so we inadvertently, in a way, start to learn how to get out of our own way. And that was the beginning of my unlearning to how to do that. But that's where, yeah, after the first class, I walked out and I asked the teacher, I said, "What did we just do? What's this thing called yoga?" And he explained the class a little bit. And then he said, "Yoga means to join." Anybody who's done yoga a little bit has heard that. Yoga means to yoke or bring together or join. And that's the first time I had ever heard that or heard any indication of that. And I immediately thought to myself, well, if yoga means to join, then why did we just spend an hour pulling ourselves apart? It just didn't add up. And yet, I fell in love with the practice.
Mm.
But that was, I feel, spirit giving me my first koan, a
Mm.
question where we're, you know, uh, the questions that we ask, let me say it this way, the deep questions like that we hold in our heart is far more valuable than any worldly answer that we could get. And I continue to hold that question in my heart today. What does it mean to join? And spirit just keeps answering and it keeps drawing me in and deeper and deeper. But that's that after. So through my 20s, I traveled quite a bit and practiced with lots of different yoga teachers. But in 1990, I moved back to Colorado. I decided to move to Boulder. I didn't decide. Spirit moved me to Boulder.
Uh-huh.
And I had this travel bug. I was here for like 6 months and I was just wanted to leave. I just had this urge to leave. And then I heard this voice. It came in like it had come in a couple times earlier. And luckily I trusted it. And the voice said, stay, stop wandering, stop
Mm.
that your healing is here. Boulder's where you're going to figure yourself out because I was searching. And so I said, okay. And it was soon after that I had rented this house with 2 other people I didn't know. And I'm on the floor doing yoga. I remember the pose, the shape, everything. And there I was. I looked up on the shelf and on the shelf, my roommate's books, A Course in Miracles.
Mhm.
And I pulled them off the shelf, opened it up, and I knew that the answer to my koan, to my question, was in those pages. Uh, it felt like Greek to me. I I don't know how or why. I barely understood a word on the page, but it was like a magnet. I just knew I had to study that book.
Mhm.
And so that was the beginning of really, truly deepening into my yoga.
Mm. Wow. So, as the course became part of your life, how did it begin to change your understanding of yoga, healing, And forgiveness, really, since the central teaching of the Course is forgiveness. I mean, this is where, we're gonna start to get into some meat here sooner
Yes,
or
it is. We'll
later.
get into the meat very quickly here with that question.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
keep going if you have more to your story. I did
Yeah.
not mean
No,
to
no, it's
interrupt.
excellent.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, we could jump to this idea. We could jump to the Yoga Sutras, where essentially, I'm going to paraphrase here,
sure.
because it's all a translation from Sanskrit to English. But the first Yoga Sutra, 1.1, there are four books to the sutras. So the first sutra, which means the Yoga Sutras are threads of truth. Okay, sutra means like a suture. They're threads of truth. So anybody who's a truth seeker, anybody who's picked up A Course in Miracles would say, "Well, wow, that's kind of interesting. I'm interested in threads of truth." So the first one, 1.1, says Hatha Yoga Anusashanam, which means now we practice yoga. And so that's often interpreted as, well, I roll out my mat and I get on it and I do a bunch of these weird movements with my body, and when I'm done, my practice is over and I get on with my day. Well, the Course tells us now is the only time there is. Okay, so
Yeah.
so now is everything. So to me, that's very striking how the Yoga Sutras begin with that word. The first word of the entire thing is now, and its base is now. We practice. When do we
Mhm.
practice? Oh yeah, now.
Okay.
Always. And that doesn't that fit with the Course? It's asking us to just to apply the lesson all through the day. Like, don't stop practicing,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yeah.
So then we get into the forgiveness in Sutra 1.2, which says, uh, it basically says, yoga is the removal of the obstacles or blockages to the clarified mind. Okay, so in right away we get, when do we practice? Always. What do we practice? Removing the obstacles to peace. Doesn't that sound familiar? Yeah. So 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 yoga really for thousands of years has always been about the mind. And it's only in the last 70 years or so that it really has been uh, gotten a hold of by the ego and transformed into something we do with our bodies. And in that sense, yoga has become a doing and not so much of an undoing as those first, well, the second sutra tells us. And then guess what, Celina? The third sutra says, and by doing this, you will naturally, uh, you will naturally know your true self. That's the paraphrase of that one. So what more do you need to know? And then I'll say, the rest of the sutras just are lots of different ways to do that. And so I feel like it's um, well, as the Course tells us, there are many, many paths. The Course is one of thousands of paths, but they all lead to the same destination.
Mm. I love that you brought this up with the Yoga Sutras and you explained a little bit more about yoga. Many people, I'm sure, may know this and many don't, especially here in the West, because most people think of yoga and look at yoga and they think it's a class that you go to work out and to get into shape. And it's not it's often not understood unless you have practiced this and studied this for a while that yoga is, I mean, the the asana, the practice, the physical practice is just like one of the 8 limbs of yoga. That's
Yeah.
so much deeper and so much more. So I love that you brought up the sutras there and aligned it with the course. It's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. The question is, if yoga is first and foremost for the mind, then who can't do yoga?
Yeah.
No one. And it it has to be, so healing must be available to all. You cannot exclude in any way. And right away, as the owner of a yoga studio for 10 years and practicing all different kinds of yoga over the years, I think I've done it all. Um, Luckily, I never stopped questioning. I never got really sucked into any one form. But it's kind of a beautiful story that maybe if later I'll go into if we have time. But
Sure.
I never had planned to open a yoga studio, but poof, all of a sudden there I am building out a studio space and ended up developing uh, my own form of yoga there and working with lots of different teachers and styles over the years. It was deep practice for me because in my heart I knew, here I am. It almost at times, Celina, felt blasphemous.
Mm.
I really had to struggle. I really struggled with it because at times I just felt like I was violating this whole thing, the whole truth that I've learned through the course by working with the body so much. And I would even say to some of my close friends, I have some very dear friends who happen to be long-term Course in Miracles students who also practice the yoga, and I would sometimes say to them my feelings, and they say, "No, no, no, Jeff, don't you stop. There's something here for you." And so every time I'd question, I would pretty soon after get a message that said, "No, just stick
Yeah.
with this.
Yeah.
Yoga's kind of your medium." So
Yeah.
I keep following that for now.
Yes. So good. We're gonna get into that a little bit more deeper as we go on here.
Excellent.
But, you mentioned yoga means to join, to yoke. And, you touched on this and you said, you had that thought like, well, we've been pulling ourselves apart, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And so, the default system of the ego. So to what really go a little bit deeper if you can into what it means to join and, what do you feel that we believe as a collective that we're separate from?
Yes. And this ties into your earlier question about what forgiveness is. I didn't really get to that, but
Yes.
yeah, hold that thought for me too, Selena.
Sure, sure.
Um, so i- if yoga means to join, what does it mean to join? That's the question. But then you say, okay, well, if yoga means to join, then what am I separate from? Hmm. Okay. Now we just drop in another layer. What am I separate from? And then we start to, and this is where the course just shines. It just shines because we start to learn that really we're not separate at all. We believe we're separate, and the power of belief is remarkably strong. And so there's the rub. We believe that we're separate. Okay, I believe that I'm separate from you, Selena. You're in a different part of the country. I'm than me. We're speaking through this medium called Zoom, um, and even if we were in the same room, we would look at each other and say, "Oh, we're in different bodies." So there's
Yeah,
so
yeah.
there's a so there is the separation, and we start to realize, that we we seem to live in a world of separation where there's duality. There's up, there's down, there's hot, there's cold, there's in and out, and loads of opposites, loads of ways to compromise and contradict and generate conflict. And so, hmm, well, let's join. What if I want to join bodies? Okay, because that's how the ego's form of joining is to bring bodies together and bring uh, like-minded bodies and thoughts together. So, so is that really joining? Well, we can delude ourselves into thinking that we can join as bodies, but the only way we can join as bodies is by excluding other bodies.
Yeah.
So that's not really joining either. And so how do we get past that? And then the course starts to get through to us and it says, "Oh, minds join. In fact, minds are already joined." The things that I see and the things that I think are shared by all in truth, and we don't recognize that as bodies. And so minds join, and this is my dear, dear friend who, uh, eh, taught me so much about the Course, Jean Langlois. We co-authored our first book together. He would often say, "Bodies bump, minds join." And, it's just a fun little way to remember that, okay, bodies bump, minds join. So there it is.
Great.
Well, how do we join? How do we realize our joined oneness, which every saint and sage has been getting us to, hoping that we'd figure out sooner or later. and and so, how do we join? Well, through forgiveness. And back to the Yoga Sutra 1.2, the removal of the obstacles to the healed mind is an undoing. So undoing, unwinding, releasing, letting go are synonyms for forgiveness. But there's no word like forgiveness. It's partly because it's a tiny bit triggering for people, and we've got to get through our triggers, you know?
Amen. Amen.
Amen. The Course is written in masculine, it uses Christian terminology. Big deal. They're words. We need words, um, because that's what we seem to use to communicate, and
Yeah.
we gotta get past the triggers, and forgiveness is just the way to that, and as we play with it just in the littlest bits, the light starts to come in and we feel better, and then we just want more of that.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned that. I think this is the first time on a webcast that's been mentioned in that way. Like, we've gotta get through our triggers because there is so much freedom in that to go through, and I know your work speaks to this, and we'll get into this more deeply, but to
Mhm.
go through those quote unquote pain points, those feelings of resistance.
Yeah,
I
that's the work.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
I
That's the
remember
yoga.
that's yoga, and I
That's it.
remember a quote I either read or heard at one point many years ago. I don't know who said it, so correct me if you know, and apologies to the quoter, but it was, someone said, "We tie ourselves up in" for yogis, "We tie ourselves up
Mm.
into knots to undo the knots of our mind."
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, so for me, I found the word pose, yoga poses, to be a little bit performance oriented, and oftentimes,
Mhm.
like in my studio, I as much as some students wanted it, I refused to put up mirrors. I did draw the line in a few places, and, so no mirrors,
Cool.
everyone was welcome. Teachers had to be kind and all inclusive. Those were my requirements, and, uh And so I don't use the word pose, I use the word shapes or positions, but I really like the word shapes, and that's the purpose of a shape, is to come into a shape in a very safe and doable manner where you bump into a restriction.
Mhm.
And and we don't target muscles in this practice. We target the fascia and the deeper area around the bones and joints, because that's where the issues and the stickiness really resides. And so the shape just exposes the restriction. We spend a little time with it, and it's the time physiologically that starts to unwind it. But then guess what? All this other stuff starts to come up, and maybe a little tear rolls down the side of your cheek, and or a little release, a little feeling of joy just starts to come through. Oh my gosh, there's the yoga working. That's what it's for.
Mm. Mm. Very good. So, if I may, you had this you sent me some quotes that were meaningful to you, and I wanted to talk at least about a couple of them. Um, but this is from chapter 2, and it's peace is an attribute in you. You cannot find it outside. Illness is some form of external searching. Health is inner peace.
Yeah.
So, how have you come to understand that both in your own life and your work with others now that you've talked about coming up against the resistance? What does this really mean?
Yeah. Well, it's just what I was sharing, whether it's yoga on a mat or the yoga of life, uh, it just doesn't matter when we release and let go and or forgive, all the same. w- Suddenly we feel a little bit better. There's a sense of freedom that just comes through, and and that's really the goal of the course. The goal of the course is inner peace, and that's as far as we need to take it. The God takes the last step, the final step for us, and so our responsibility is through forgiveness. We unwind the blockages in our hearts and minds, and we start to experience the peace within. And and so that quote that you just read is a quote that takes us from outer searching and outer seeking to inner finding. As you know, there's that timeless line out of the course that most everybody remembers is the ego's maxim is to seek and do not find. Just keep looking in all the wrong places, and everything will be just fine because it'll be status quo forever. Okay, but then all of a sudden, at some point, the only thing the ego cannot do, so the ego cannot um, hide its own questioning. It starts to question itself, and the moment it questions itself is the moment that spirit has a little chance to get in, and
Mm,
then we go, okay, well, spirit, come on in, thank you, because forgiveness is not of the ego. We can't do it alone. We
yeah,
cannot forgive by ourselves. We have to let spirit come in, and that's its job.
yeah, yeah.
The same way we may, get all dressed up in the perfect yoga attire and make sure we have the right look and comb our hair and everything to go to the yoga studio and be ready for practice. No, no, no. Bring yourself exactly as you are with all your problems, all your restrictions. Everything is always welcome in our yoga. And then we, whether it's on the mat or you sit on a cushion in your home or wherever, when you have a moment of practice, which we need moments of practice where you say, okay, I'm here. To me, this is the critical answer. I am ready for a better way.
Mm,
Boy, have those words in your heart and the universe will respond. I'm ready for a better way. Show me how to forgive. Show me how to let go. Show me, please. And then wait,
mm,
because that's what love does. You wait and
yeah,
you watch and you let it be undone, and maybe there's tears that flow, and maybe there's laughter and joy, and maybe there's someone who just pops into your life that is all ears and ready to just listen, and or maybe you schedule with a psychotherapist and go have a session or whatever. We it's up and out is is the way.
yes, yeah. Mm. I'm s
Cleansing.
Cleansing,
Yeah.
purification. I'm
Mhm.
so glad you're touching on this so quickly off the bat as we begin here, and, I wanna be careful to stay aligned with that deeper non-dual foundation of the Course. It's very clear
Mhm.
it's a radical teaching and it's a very big teaching. But for those who
Huge.
have been studying a while and understand, it's very clear the Course tells us I am not a body. And, there
Mm.
is no world. And that's big. And that is just can turn your perception upside down. I think that's what Jesus intends to do by the Course, right? So,
Mhm.
is that really what you were dealing with early on when you had some resistance and they were like, "Jeff, keep going on," Was it,
Yeah.
to work with the body, but still, I mean, how is it now working with the body, but still staying aligned with that deeper non-dual foundation? Is there anything
Yeah.
you can add for that? This will be good for me too.
Yeah. Oh, it's good for me too, trust me. Um, yeah, so, that's the hitch, the Course, it at it says it more than once, and at one point it
Yes.
says, "This is the central teaching of the Course. There is no world."
Yes.
Oh, wait a minute. If there's no world, then there's no Jeff Bailey.
Mm.
There's no body if there's no world. Now, one of two things pop up very quickly, that are both of the ego. One is, well, if there's no world, it sure then why can I just knock on this wall? Why is there this thing called a microphone? Why is there a world all around me if there's no world?
Yeah.
Okay. And then of course number two, if there's no world, then there's no Jeff, and that is a very, very threatening to the ego. But yeah, okay. Here's a line from the old movie Stripes with Bill Murray. Uh, Lighten up, Francis. Remember when Francis, one of the characters, he says, "Anybody calls me Francis, I'll kill you." When they were kind of all
Yes.
interested, and the right away the sergeant says, "Lighten up, Francis." You know, so so
Yes.
that's the Holy Spirit coming in, says, "Okay, just lighten up, have a little laugh about this idea." Because actually that's how the world ends, in laughter.
Mm.
And and we're not mocking it in laughter, but we begin to very, very gently laugh at really the mockery that the ego has made of heaven, of perfect oneness. Okay, um, so as we lighten up and we have to play. And here's how I play, like, okay, Jeff, if teaching yoga feels so blasphemous, and you feel like you're violating the Course, then how is it that you get up out of bed every day and there's your body? We can't, as long as we're here, as long as that we believe that we're here, we're in these bodies. And so there's the practice. There's the practice. And as we just begin to play with this idea through forgiveness, it all of a sudden starts to seem a little less real. It
Mm.
is less sticky. It has less impact on us. We really start to set ourselves free. And by the way, when we do transition from this world, we don't take these bodies with us. We can be very grateful for that. And
Mm.
so, why not start to play with the notion that there's something much more wholesome and loving and complete that's just beyond time and space. Jesus said, "Heaven is in our midst. Heaven is at hand." It is right here. It's just veiled over by this thing called Maya. That's the Eastern term for illusion. And Socrates and Plato both said, uh, appearance is not our reality. Okay, and these are saints and sages who have felt it and experienced and wrote about it. Let's play with that idea.
Mm.
And then you have, I mean, there's no better era in than now to work with this, but you have all of our scientists, you have the quantum physicists who are telling us they've dug deep and they've generated these particle accelerators and things that are able to look deep, deep, deep into the universe. And guess what? Guess what they found?
What?
Nothing. There's nothing there. And it's 99.99, nine's gone forever, percent space. That means, and now, so 99.99, and I kind of enjoy reading about this stuff. They're even finding that particle that makes up the 0.001%, even that is now starting to become into question. And so it is all, it's empty. And it's just simply the belief in it that makes it seem so real. And so that's what the Course asks us to do, doesn't it? It asks us to question everything, including our beliefs and values.
So beautiful. Very great. Thank you for that. Okay, so I have
Hmm.
another quote. Can we unpack it a little bit according to your experience?
Yes, let's
Okay.
do it.
Okay. So in the Course, chapter 8, um, the Course tells us, remember that the Holy Spirit interprets the body only as a means of communication. The ego separates through the body. The Holy Spirit reaches through it to others. So it's a little bit longer quote than that, but those are the main things.
Hmm.
So, and I know you've used similar language in your work. Um, so, what do you mean when you describe the body that way? And this can be very directly related to your experience as a yoga teacher. And how
Hmm.
do you hold that without making the body too real? So, what does that mean in on the mat?
Oh man, it is just such a. It just takes me to such a deep place with that question,
Good.
Celina.
That's what we like.
Yeah, the body. So, what does it mean? What does the Course mean when are when we're encouraged to use the body as a device for communication device? Okay, well, there's a huge hint. And by the way, there's many insights. There's a whole section dedicated to this, and the subsequent sections after it are fantastic too. I think you're in chapter 7 there, or 8.
8.
And okay, let's jump to the metaphysics just briefly. Let's first of all, just even for a second, rejoice. There is no world, there is no body. Thank God for that. God is this perfect love, changeless, formless, perfect, and eternal, outside of time and space. That's what we ultimately want to join with, because therein lies our reality. Therein lies our home, our timelessness. There is our treasure that we seek. We won't find it outside, we find it within. Is it going to be within the body? No, we're not going to find it in the body. It's in the mind. Oh, where's that? Is the mind in the body? Oh, sorry. The mind is not in your brain either. How could the most powerful thing in the universe be stuck between your ears? Well, the ego wants you to believe that that's where it all is, and that this little thing behind my eyes is everything. No, 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 no. So that's how we get into this expansive quality. Here's the thing. Yoga is not meant to stretch our muscles. It's meant to stretch our minds. And so if we let it stretch our minds and really expand, now where's my mind? Everywhere. It's everywhere. What what the saints and sages and what the Course is trying to tell us as well. My mind is just as much in that door or that window as it is between my ears. It's everywhere.
Mm.
It's in the stars and the galaxy. And that's why we can lay out on our porch at night and gaze into the universe and see it doesn't really look that far away, does it? It's all here and now. And the physicists are all telling us it all communicates with itself, even if it's light years away. It communicates with itself instantaneously.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, without going into all that, let's just say that's sort of the backdrop for using my body now as a communication device to join, which means when I bump into somebody, whether it's a family member or someone in the checkout line or someone on a yoga mat next to me in class, there are no accidents. The universe is putting all of us together exactly in the right moment for our healing. What is the lesson? Um, all things are lessons God would have me learn. How many things? All of them.
Mm.
Okay, so now I don't take anything for granted. There's no such thing um, as oh, what's the word? Sometimes the simplest words escape me. Um, there's no such thing as coincidence. There's no such thing as luck. Everything is happening exactly the way it's supposed to. That's another course lesson. So now, when I bump into these bodies, what is my function but forgiveness? That's my one and only function here. And that is God's plan to get us out of this crazy, mixed up dream cycle after cycle. That's the karma of
Yes.
just ongoing, perpetual treadmill for eternity. We got to get off it. And forgiveness is the way out. And and it's the way it really is an inward journey, and the way in is the
Yeah.
way out. So now whatever shows up, whatever, going back to
Mhm.
our previous comments, whatever pushes my button, whatever triggers me, there's my lesson.
Yeah.
It's not my opportunity to correct a brother. It's not my opportunity to fix something on the outside. It's not my opportunity to push or pull. It's my opportunity to heal. Thank you. Thank you so much, Spirit, for showing me exactly what it is that's next on my path to undo.
Yes.
And then it starts to add up. Yeah,
Yes,
go ahead.
beautifully said, and I'm also thinking it from the perspective of even from someone who, let's say, and you don't have to be a yoga practitioner, obviously, to glean all the wisdom from this conversation because it goes deep. But from the perspective of even somebody that's on the mat, I'm just going to use myself as an example.
Mhm,
Um, Sometimes the resistance you bump up to when you're in a posture or a
mhm.
shape, to use your word, is even so, revealing when you allow it, when you allow to experience that resistance within myself. That just the
Yes.
triggers with all of the other quote unquote bodies that we bump up against, certainly, absolutely, which I love that. But even within your work is a little reminiscent of my studies of. Have you heard of Dr. John Kabat-Zinn? And he
Oh,
has
yeah.
a mindfulness based
Oh,
stress
yeah.
reduction. I think it was
Mhm.
called MBSR, and so it was just fascinating to know, like, how he could take people through this 8-week program who had experienced stress and physical injuries and chronic pain, all of different sorts, different diagnoses, but was able to use that time to just allow, like, breathe and just go there with your mind and allow. And what came up for the people of, his class. I can imagine that that has been a part of your experience too, as a yogi practitioner. It
Oh,
certainly has been of mine. So that's what I was
yes.
thinking. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's it. So earlier we were talking about how the body is a communication device to join through forgiveness with all of the people we bump into in our lives, whether it's a family member or something that's just sort of, a short term relationship in the checkout line. But now we go to the yoga mat and we we kind of turn up the volume a little bit. The moment we say, okay, now I'm going to practice, I'm going to get on my mat, I'm going to come into a shape. Oh, there's the restriction. Now, what happens when we feel a restriction in our body? And especially if it's a little bit uncomfortable, we tend to avoid it. We numb it. We cut it out. We go get it, evaluate it. We just want to get rid of the pain. But what if that pain were the messenger? You've heard the phrase, don't shoot the messenger. Okay. And that's kind of what we do when we try to kill the pain. I remember Ken talking at length about the fact that humans are pain avoiding and comfort seeking, which is a setup for the ego to win every time. So,
Mhm.
what you're saying, Celina, what you had that experience with John Kabat-Zinn is that you chose to practice and you chose to go in and look at the obstacles, the blockages, the resistance, which by the way is futile, you know. But once we look at it, we save time by unwinding it sooner than later. And that's the whole that's the thing that the course is trying to teach us is we can save time by
Mm.
willingly doing it now. And so there it is, you come into a shape and you bump into the resistance. And what I've found over the years, the vast majority of students will say, "Oh, can't do that. That doesn't feel right. That's uncomfortable. I'm out of here."
Trigger,
See,
trigger, trigger. Yeah.
trigger, trigger, trigger. There's the resistance, even though it's futile. In the short term, it seems to win. And then we go on in our patterns, in our restrictions, staying on the treadmill, doing the same thing over and over and over. The road less traveled, thank you, Robert Frost, is the one that makes all the difference. So we have to say, okay, I want a better way. I want to get off the treadmill. I want to get out of these patterns that work against me. Now, okay, let me try this again. Let me come into a shape. And now here's the only skill that we learn in this practice that I call Avita Yoga is to learn how to discern the difference between pain and healing sensation. Outright pain is never productive, it's never helpful. But staying on the edge of it where we can feel into it sustainably, there's this thing called healing sensation, which actually is very captivating for the mind. I call it throwing the ego a bone. We just chuck a little bone over there, and the ego's content with the sensation. And lo and behold, when we can kind of distract the ego for a second, the door to spirit starts to open up. And so to me, healing sensation is right next to heartfelt intuition.
Hmm.
And so now the body becomes a communication device to really access the mind where all healing occurs.
Mm.
That's what the Course tells us. All right. If all healing occurs at the level of the mind, how do I do that? How do I get to that? Well, just ask the question and you'll be given an answer. You just got to ask the question and hold it in your heart like I've done. And that's the beauty is so it becomes this moving meditation where we move from shape to shape, we spend time in it and listen and adjust the time and the pressure exactly according to the feedback. And we have the luxury of doing that on our yoga mat. But when we go out into the world
Love it.
and we bump into the obstacles and the triggers get triggered, there's no room to adjust the pressure. You're in the moment and you got to ask for all the help that the Holy Spirit has um, and act according to it, unwind according to it. But here we get to practice in a very gentle manner.
Hmm. Do you think that with the practice that you've had on the mat over the years has impacted, like, do you see, in other words, do you see a difference in yourself from now, like going out
Mm.
and interacting
Oh,
with the world versus, years
Oh,
ago
yes.
because of your practice of being uncomfortable,
Yes.
facing your triggers. Okay, so let's
Yes.
give us
Yes.
give us
Yeah.
some give us some practical examples or tell us a story.
Oh, okay. Well, I can think of a bunch, but one I haven't talked too much about is probably the closest one to me, and that's the relationship that I had with my daughter, who's now 26 years old. It's probably going to make me well up a little bit, but
Okay.
already.
Yeah,
Um, and my wife, if she were here, she'd be sharing my sentiments exactly
sure.
because we're in it together. Uh, we adopted our daughter, and we had her really from day one. And she came in with this thing called Turner syndrome, and which showed up after about 5 years. And now they test for it at birth, but they didn't test for it then. And so it shows up at around the 5 or 6 year mark. And overnight, she just turned into this very, very, very difficult kid
Mm,
in lots of different ways. She stopped growing. Food didn't work for her. I mean, it was just endless. And then she ended up being bullied pretty much all the way through college. And any parent who's ever dealt with bullying with their kid, no, it's devastating. And I was deep enough into my practice at the time that I was able to say to those who would ask about it, and Lori and I would be able, my wife, we'd be able to look each other in the eye and say, well, she's polishing us.
mm,
Her personality and her demands. She would come home from school just so angry, and there was so much anger in her and she was internalizing it, and it took every bit of me to stay up sometimes to the wee hours of the morning listening to her and working with her. She was unbelievably persistent. Anyway,
mm,
the long story short is that just as hard as it is, I knew that it was part of our healing. And Lori and I both, we just kept letting it work on us, and really forgiving ourselves for maybe not being the best parents, not knowing exactly what to do, and really, as honestly as hard as it was, to really, really accept her for exactly who she was.
mm.
That's It was extremely challenging situation. And isn't that the hard thing with family members? It's the ones that we're closest to that we tend to demand the most perfection from.
Yeah.
So that was the situation, and for Lori and I, it just kept coming back again and again and again to forgiving and undoing. And to me, it there's parenting advice out there, and to me, that's the only advice. If that's all you do, you're doing everything by forgiving and accepting your kid exactly as they are. So
Mhm.
so jump ahead. She goes through college. She graduated from college barely, and we really never pushed her into college. We didn't. We really at least thought that we weren't putting pressure on her. But
Yeah.
she learned how to put enormous pressure on herself. And she graduated from college, had these extremely high expectations of herself, and still didn't have the wherewithal to hold a job or anything. And we would just keep saying, Sunny, she changed her name from Georgia to Sunny. And, and, uh, and we'd say, Sonny, we got you. It's okay. You don't have to get a job right away. But she would continue to push. Now, here's the answer you're looking for.
Mm,
It's the answer we were looking for. Lori and I were on a little drive somewhere, just the two of us, and we were having a conversation about Sonny, and we didn't discuss this directly between the two of us, but I felt something within me. I felt that I realized that I had an agenda for her. And I realized that when we'd get on the phone and talk, that I would still, as much as I accepted her, I found that I was still holding a certain expectation for her. And Lori too. But that instant, in our conversation, without even putting words to it, we both completely 100% accepted Sunny as she was.
Mm.
And and the next day was different.
Mm.
She actually called us and the conversation was different. There was a little opening. And the conversation I had with her was different because I knew I just had to listen. And so it sunk into me like so deep and like never before. Well, that was actually just about a year ago, Celina, and
Mm.
she has blossomed in countless ways. Just the things that she's saying and doing, she calls us almost daily now, and it's just she's bubbly and vibrant. And even when in a couple times when I'd bring up a little something from her past that might have been a little unpleasant, guess what? There's that line in the Course that says, forgiveness um, is essentially uh, remembering only the loving thoughts you gave and those that were given to you.
Mm.
Well, guess what? That's what she started doing. She 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 glossed right over my little inference toward some unpleasant event. I don't know what it was. Right into the more positive thing that she gleaned, at that time. And so there was a little one again. Like, okay, Jeff, you don't have to bring it up at all, and because she's not, and so that is probably the most
Wow.
recent and the most profound thing that we cannot um, accept each other enough.
So
Yeah,
beautiful. Thank you so
yeah,
much for sharing
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
So meaningful. Is that really, I mean, that really is a definition of a miracle. A shift
Uh,
occurred and wow,
oh
look
yeah,
what happened.
major shift, and that goes back to that line that you know I think it is workbook lesson number 17 or 18 that I am not alone in experiencing the effects of my thinking. Okay, so when I heal for myself, I heal for all. There's the lesson in that.
Yes.
I need
Yeah.
do nothing
I need do nothing.
but heal myself.
Minds are
Yeah,
joined. And
minds are joined.
the course so beautifully and it reminds us throughout our brother is our savior.
That's it.
So just remembering that and really feeling it with your heart.
Yeah,
Um,
my daughter was my savior. Yeah.
mm, yeah. Something, if I may ask this, this is just a question that has bubbled up in me recently, in experiencing your work and listening to you. And there's a very much a heart-based presence in the way that you communicate and that you work. And I wanted to talk about that, what that means to be so heart-based. And that may be a very simple question for some people, but also taking into consideration that the Course so much talks about the mind and it was given to all these intellectuals, it has a
Mhm.
rich history with
Mhm.
the scholar community. And,
Mhm.
it's very easy to be caught up in the mind and to feel like you understand it intellectually, but where does that come? Like, the Course mentions the mind, I think, over 1,000 times, almost 2,000
Mhm.
times. It does also mention the heart 100 or so times.
Mhm.
But where does that intersect for you? What does that mean to be so heart-based? What can we say about that here to those where when we talk about the mind, we talk about the mind? Does that make sense? Can you expand on that in
Oh,
any way?
yeah, I hear you. Yeah,
Okay, good.
beautiful, beautiful question.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we know the journey is an inner journey. We get tricked by thinking it's all on the outer.
Yeah.
And but that's the beauty of it. No matter where you go, it's by design. That's back to the 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 um the helpfulness prayer that we opened with. No matter where I go, there he is with me, guiding me always. So, we can travel, we can go places on the outer, but the real journey is on the inner. That's what Robert Frost was pointing to. It didn't mean you don't get to a fork in the woods and have to. I mean, what amount of strain and pressure that is to pick the right outer path? That's horrible. That just creates conflict. It didn't matter which path you took. It's the one that he did take was with heart. It was from a different place in his mind. And when we really let that intuition come through, then their choices are made automatically for us because we're so in tune with the inner guidance. That's the goal, because intuitive inner guidance equals peace, which equals happiness, equals joy, you know. So those are interchangeable. But now at the crux of your question, I think, is how can we have this heartfelt experience of what the Course is so intellectually trying to share? Well, maybe a slight bit of an intellectual answer is, to me, at the see, here I am. The center of the mind, the peaceful center that we all really want to find, is the heart of the mind. So on the outside, we've got the world, we've got time and space, which is all perceptual. Just underneath that, we have the feelings and the emotions that start to generate that. Just under the feelings and emotions, we have the thoughts, because the same thought can trigger lots of different feelings and emotions with different people, right? That's how we know ultimately those kind of thoughts and feelings, while we may experience them, they're false because they're all different. So then beneath the thoughts was we have perception, emotions, thought. Just beneath thought is belief. And so it's our fundamental beliefs that start to form our thoughts. And that's how we, you know, really get into separation, and we really get into trouble when we follow that. And so it's our yoga, and it's through the process of forgiveness that lets us sink down through that. We're sinking down through the illusion, because just beneath belief at the core, now you probably have a bullseye in your mind. At the center is the heart of the mind. And guess what's at the heart? Desire. And it's there where, thank you, Shakespeare, for that beautiful line, to be or not to be. That is the question. For me, it's to join or not to join. And that's where we in a flash, and that's how fast forgiveness works. It only takes a holy instant to go down, to get to the core, to get to the heart, where at the very bottom of it all is a decision to join, a decision to heal, a decision to unify, a decision to see the sameness, to see the oneness, to see the love. See, those are all synonyms. Or to do the impossible, which is to, and takes so much energy and so much work because it's completely unnatural, to separate. And now you start going back up, and it just gets more and more painful the more you go back up, promoting the false idea of a separate self. And it's arrogant, it's egotistical, it's painful, it's destructive, it's unnecessary, it's not helpful. See, to go down through the other path is truly helpful. And that's how we know if we're being truly helpful, is when we let forgiveness be our guide. And it's only then that we can be truly helpful. And then it just becomes heartfelt. And we get a taste of that, and we don't even, all it takes is reading one sentence from the Course, or, because we get a taste of it, and then we just want more of that. That's the only thing that we can have more of that actually results in happiness.
Beautifully said. Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank
Wow.
you.
Wow, that's something to sit with, certainly, for sure. I'll be watching this again. Okay, well, I know our time will be coming to the close soon to
Hmm.
close soon, but I do have a couple more questions to winding it
Lay
up.
'em on. Yeah,
Yeah,
this is
yeah, 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 this
yeah,
is
it's
fun.
good.
Yeah.
Hmm.
When you think about the healing that when you think about the healing path the Course offers, what do you feel is one of the most important things students should remember? If they could they
Hmm.
come away from this conversation, what's one of the key
About the
takeaways?
course.
Or the
Yeah,
healing path, you know?
yeah,
Anything that you feel strongly that maybe students should remember, know, but it's sometimes, it escapes us. What would you
yeah.
offer?
Well, the course is full of words, and we can be so grateful that those words have been laid down. It really is a living document. I've been studying it and practicing with it a long time, and it continues to evolve. I mean, isn't that funny that I actually said that? It's the same words on the piece of paper, but as I evolve, it makes the meaning of it just reaches me in deeper levels. And so, for starters, I would say, eh, eh, first of all, I know exactly what it's like to pick that book up and not have a clue of what it's trying to say. But here's here's the real takeaway: is follow your heart. That's the that would be the takeaway for any course student, because that's what the course is trying to get us to do, and it's not rocket science. If it doesn't feel good, if it doesn't feel in aligned with goodness, even though it might be a little scary, spirit will
Yeah,
kind of move us in a direction. That's when we got to work through the fear. Is if we know we got to go in this direction, but it feels kind of
yeah,
scary,
yeah.
that's still heartfelt. Trust it and follow it. And then sometimes it's just rich and fulfilling, and you just know, and you bounce it off a couple friends, and they're like, "Yeah, go for it." And then, okay, let me do that. That's the essence of it, and that's what our brothers and sisters are for, to help show us and light the path for us. So follow your heart, number one,
Mm,
and then I would just say, even if it doesn't, if the meaning of the words don't jump off the paper for you, don't worry about it. But then come back to them. And here's what I've done, Celina, is that I'll get to a paragraph and I just won't have a clue what it means. And so I'll say, Spirit, help me. I really want to know these words. Help me understand this. And so then I'll read it again. And the strangest things, I mean, it's not strange at all that it's like the second time through, now it's a little bit richer. There's a little more meaning. And you're like, "Oh my god, thank you for that. That was amazing." So I am a course ACIM 100%. I it's the course that helped me understand the sutras. It's the course that helped me understand the Bhagavad
mm,
Gita. It's the course that helps me understand the Bible. It's the course that helps me understand the Tao. There's not a better medium for the Western mind than the course, and that's who it was written for.
mhm.
So I say, you know, follow your heart, but go deep. Pick a path. Hopefully, it's a Course in Miracles, because I think it's a fantastic one. Go deep with it. Just keep going deep. Work through the
Mm,
frustration and ask for help.
and ask for help.
That's what you're here
Wow.
for. That's
Yeah,
what the foundation is here for. It's what we're all here
what
for.
we're all here for.
That's how we join.
Yes. You said so many good things there, like, I kept getting all these things like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah." Things to unpack. First of all, I love how you said it was a living document. I often, tease members of our own team because they'll say, "It's a living document," and I have to, well, living document in the way that it's spiritually alive because, the world says living document like it's a document that's changed. Boy, we're not changing the words of the Course anymore. So as a
No,
publisher
No,
But no, we
there's
say
not
living.
a
Yeah.
there's no mistake in that book.
Yes.
It's the greatest literary work of
It
all
is.
time, I'm sure of it, and you know what, Selena? I just heard that word "living document" a few months ago for the first time ever, and I thought, "Wow, is that ever true?" And
Yeah.
once I heard that, I thought, "Okay, there's even more inspiration. Keep going.
Yes.
Keep
Yes.
studying those pages." It just
Yes.
takes you deeper and deeper.
It is. I used to work in a different field in social services, so living document in the course was a much
Oh.
different thing. So I'm like,
Yeah, right.
"No, it's not a living document." But yes, it is spiritually alive, and what changes is us. Absolutely. We go deeper and
Spiritually alive.
deeper, you
Yeah.
know? What came to me too is when you said, you can be fearful for something, but if you know in your heart that's where you need to go, you're right. It is a different type of, I don't know what, I don't want, it's not fear, but you're given the courage to walk that path when you know in your heart of hearts. And the ego is always louder first in my,
Yes.
and I've come to know, like, oh wait, this is the ego, because, just anxieties that come up out of nowhere. They get nervous
Yeah.
about, and I'm like, oh, wait a second. I can choose to see this differently. Like, I know it's
Yes.
trying to get a hold of my mind right now.
Yes.
But yes.
That's when you know. That's
Yeah.
when you know it takes a little bit of courage to step out of that
Yes.
seeming safety and go for the real safety.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So that's what came up to me when you're talking about it. It's so beautiful.
Yeah. We
For
all
s
know that.
for
Yeah.
someone listening right now who is dealing with pain, fear, discouragement, what would you want to say to them?
Well, it's that beautiful line from Star Wars. The resistance is futile. And it's true, but it seems so alive and so real and so pertinent, or pervasive, and um, so that all of the words that you just used, the pain is something that we gently work through. I listened to Ken Wapnick for years, and he helped shed light on the course for me. And he would say, the path is through, not over, not under, not around, but very, very, very gently with the help of spirit, gently through. And so that's what's behind the yoga. We bump into the resistance, whether it's in the body or in the mind, and we just say, okay, I want to go through this. And that is the road less traveled. It makes
Mm,
all the difference when we have that perspective, that shift in perspective, and then ask for help. You know, the yoga that I teach is very, very, very different than the other forms of yoga, and it does give us a medium for doing just what I said. Does that help? Does that answer the question?
it does. It does. And I'm gonna give you a chance to talk a little bit about your work here right at the very end. But finally, um, another question, our last one before the end. If you could leave us with one simple truth about joining, healing, forgiveness, or peace, just what would it be?
Well, I would say turn that into your own question.
Mm,
And what I would ask is, how is how are those words, peace, joining, truth, forgiveness, healing, how are they synonyms? How do they mean the same thing? And wait for an answer.
great. So good. Jeff, thank you. For people who want to learn more about you and stay connected with you, learn more about your work, can you tell us how? And we'll put this all in the chat too, and
Mhm.
have this information ready. But can you tell us a little bit about where people could find you?
Yeah. Well, right now I'm in Boulder, Colorado, and in my basement of my house. Um, but you can find me online. I'm at avitayogaonline.com. It's Avita Yoga is this form of yoga that came through to me, really inspired by A Course in Miracles and a lifelong practice of asking these questions. And for me, it's a very, very doable practice because, as I said earlier, yoga, the healing power of yoga must be available to all. And so that's what it's become, and it's a practice, it's a medium that helps us use the body to get to the healing that occurs at the level of the mind, and that's makes all the difference.
Mm, very good.
Yeah.
Well,
On
that's oh,
the
yeah.
book is called Mobility for Life, mobilityforlifebook.com. It'll kinda take you to the same place, but, uh, I was inspired. I even have a section in the book called re the healing perspective of injury. So I say there may be accidents, but there are. Sorry, I got that upside down. There may be injuries, but there are no accidents. And it was through an injury that I had where I asked, okay, what is
Mm,
this? What's the purpose of this? The injury gave me enough time. It slowed me down to where I got to write this book, which
mm.
I feel is a very helpful book that helps shed light on all the things that we've been talking about.
So cool. Very good. Thank you so much. And just to mention too, your first book is The Yoga Sutras According to A Course in Miracles. Did I get that
Y
title right?
Yeah, yeah, the world is all about the yoga body, so I thought I'd write the yoga mind,
Mhm.
and, it is
The Yoga
the
Mind, pardon
first
me.
it's the book 1 of the Yoga Sutras according to the Course, and I've pretty much have the rest of it written, I just haven't published it yet, but Jean and I, my dear, dear friend Jane Langlois, who I had dinner with last night. Um,
Mm,
he's such a beautiful soul. He's been just instrumental in helping me glean A Course in Miracles and what it's trying to share. And so we co-authored this first book. And if anybody wants a copy of that, they can get a hold of me through the website, and
sure.
I'll sign and send one to you. It's just not out there like it used to be, and I
Okay.
need to actually publish more of them. I just got to get around to it.
Gotcha. So good
Yeah,
to know that. So good to
yeah,
know. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for today. I love this conversation.
me too.
Absolutely. And oh my gosh, so helpful for so many people. And I hope that you will join us again at some point.
Oh, thank you. I'd love to
Yeah.
join you again, as
Yeah.
always.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Thank you, friend. Thank you for
Okay.
coming.
Thank you, Selena. Namaste.
Namaste.